Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mic'd Avengers podcast, where we focus on martial arts and action cinema, but definitely delve into much more. My name is Jason from Martial Arts Theater 3000. I've been a lifelong fan of martial arts movies from Bruce Lee to the Venom Mob, Bruceploitation, and everything in between.
My name's Dragon, aka the Fanatical Dragon on YouTube. I also write the Blu-ray reviews for Eastern Heroes magazine right here in the UK. I'm about 4 decades into this love affair with East Asian cinema, specifically action cinema. Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan and the Shaw brothers got me into Hong Kong films, but unlike my buddy Jason, I've seen a whole bunch of Japanese, Indonesian and South Korean action flicks too. So over the coming episodes, every so often, we're going to force feed him something he has not seen.
And I'm Shaun, also known as Food for Thought. It all started for me at the tender age of 14, where I discovered Jackie Chan's Drunken Master. From there, I kind of delved into old school Kung Fu, and that has been my passion for 30 plus years now. I also started delving into all realms of Asian cinema, and I'm very happy to say that these days I have a pretty strong passion for kind of dark Korean thrillers. If you like what you hear and you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a like, share and subscribe. And please enjoy this episode of the Mic'd Avengers. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 8 of the Mic'd Avengers podcast. We are back and today we have a bit of a curveball for you as far as an episode goes. We decided to stray away a little bit from the old martial arts and decided to go to a very dark place. And we are reviewing or covering or discussing in depth 2010's I Saw the Devil, which I've watched plenty of times. And I believe Dragon has seen a fair few times.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And then we are here with Jason, Martial Arts Theater 3000, who has not seen the film before. This is his first time watching it.
It's another intervention.
It's an intervention episode.
I'm being intervened.
Yes. So before we get started, I believe Dragon has some synopses for us.
I do indeed. I've got two. One is very short and succinct from IMDb, which I kind of dig, which just says a secret agent exacts revenge on a serial killer through a series of captures and releases, which is not bad. And then Google coming in with a weird AI melange that says, when his pregnant fiancée is murdered, Secret Service agent Soo Hyun sets out to seek revenge. She identifies the killer and forces him to swallow a GPS tracking capsule, which does happen, but it's not necessarily the most important plot point, I don't think.
I know those ones always, they pick a weird name and then
Super
pick a
random.
weard thing that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least they gave a character name. It wasn't like Philip.
Yeah.
Last one was Lou. We didn't even get Gordon Lou.
I can't help but feel like those synopses, even though it's not it is a major part of the film, but it's not really something to dwell on. I do think they're a little spoilery, both of those. Like the whole catch and release gimmick of the film. I mean, it's fun not knowing that going in, right?
Yeah, completely.
So I think, I don't know that they're slightly spoilery, but we'll go around the table. You know, I'm here, I'm Shaun, I'm Food for Thought, one of the hosts here. I'm here with the Fanatical Dragon.
Hello.
And of course, I've mentioned him already, Jason, Martial Arts Theater 3000 is here with us as well. How's it going, everyone? And I think we're going to save Jason till last. I think I'm excited to hear his opinions, but I'm going to have to go to you, Dragon, first. And when's the first time you saw this film? What do you think of this film? Or what did you think about this film? And what do you think about this film now?
I was trying to remember the first time I saw it, and I honestly can't pinpoint it exactly. I fell down a Kim Ji-woon rabbit hole, and he kind of fast became, I'd say, probably one of my top 3 South Korean directors.
Absolutely.
Arguably might even be my favorite sometimes, depending when you ask me. He's a real surgeon of a director, like a real clinician with how he does stuff, and tends to not make the same movie twice, right? So all of his films are really quite different, though they all kind of have his same sort of style to it. But I think I'd seen A Bittersweet Life first, and that's probably also one of my early introductions to one of the main actors in this, to Lee Byung-hun, who I also really, really massively love, like a big fan of his work, even with other directors. So I think this came quite early on. I think it's before Age of Innocence had Age of Shadows. Age of Shadows had come out.
Right.
So at the time, don't know what timeline that would be, but probably about 10 years ago, I think, roughly. Since then, I've seen it, probably a dozen times, maybe.
Wow.
Both different versions, because there's the unrated version, which Jason, I think, is probably the one that you've seen, but it's not just the case that the one version of the movie has less violence or less gore. They're really quite different. There's quite a few different scenes not in one that are in the other. And weirdly, the director's cut shorter than the original theatrical release by about 2 minutes. I mean, they're not radically different movies. It's not like a spectacularly different ending, but they've got a slightly different vibe to them. Though I think Kim Ji-woon does say that his preferred version is the shorter director's cut or international version.
Oh, wow.
I thought there was 3 actually, right? Like I thought there was one, and I guess it never got released because he kept chopping it down, and then it turned into international and Korean. Maybe. I'd heard he had to make quite a lot of cuts to get a Korean domestic release, and then he decided to go back in and change the pacing a little bit because there was some stuff that he thought you could trim a little bit more. But we'll get into all that. But no, overall, I really, really absolutely adore the movie, as dark and as twisted as it is. It borders on a little ridiculous at times. Yeah. But I'm all in for that. I think that's kind of part of its charm. In an alternate universe, this movie maybe could have been called Two Graves, or that old adage, if you seek revenge, dig two graves, because it is literally everything about the movie seems to kind of explore that idea of if you chase a monster, you become the monster. Or who is the devil of the title? Is it Choi Min-sik's character? Is it what Lee Byung-hun becomes by the end of the movie? All of that's open to debate, but this is too much of a ramble already. I love it. I'm going to throw it right back to you, Shaun, before we jump to Jason. We'll leave him in suspense.
Yeah. I can't remember the first time I saw this film. It was around the time that it got released, I imagine. I don't know in what format I saw it. I don't know whether I bought it or I don't know how I saw it. As far as I know, I don't recall seeing any other version than the unrated version. I believe, from what I'm aware of, I've only seen the one version. Now, it could be that early on I saw a different version. It's just gone from my brain. But the version I saw yesterday is the version that I'm very familiar with. And it's kind of sat in my brain all these years. Love the film. Loved it when I first watched it, and love it today. But I was talking to Jason briefly earlier, and this watch of the film was very unique to all the other watches of the film for me. I don't know whether it's because I'm getting older or what, but I was able to definitely explore the film a lot more, and kind of the themes of, who is the monster, and the various themes it has. And funny enough, when you mentioned that it does get a bit silly at times, I really hadn't picked that up before this watch, but watching it this time, there's a whole segment in this film that I'm just like, this is wild, this is so out there, but I was on board. I'm 100% on board. I'll just say, this isn't much of a spoiler. Hopefully you've seen the film if you're listening to this, but there is a particular scene with a cannibal in it, and I think that whole sequence is just like, it's so like almost year 2000s horror movie kind of feel to it, which I love, because I love that vibe in general. But yeah, there were certain things about the film this time that I picked up. I have extensive notes. I've never taken so many notes on a film.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited to dive in and discuss it a little bit more, and the various aspects of the themes and things like that. But you're not here for me and Dragon. You're here for Jason. So here it is, Jason. Give it to us with both barrels, like Choi Min-sik does at one point, and tell us all about what you think about I Saw the Devil.
For sure. Of course, I'm going to have to do it like drum roll style. I can't just jump right into it.
Of course.
I'll start kind of at the end. My final thoughts on these movies in general. And I think Dragon, you may have threw me a bit of a curveball because I was talking about these thrillers and some like things like, oh, Fatal Attraction. You're like, Jason, if you're watching thrillers, maybe you should, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe this will fit right in with a little bit of the Raid. Like they'll have some hallway fights or something. You know what I mean? I don't recall any of you guys saying horror until you guys didn't refer to it ever as a horror. Well, that's also a big discussion. Huh?
I think that's a hot debate for this film. Is it a thriller or is it a horror? Mm-hmm.
So going in, I had been watching like The Gift and these Americanized, meaning, well, I'm understanding what Americanized means a bit now, like when it comes to these movies. So watching it, starting out, I had the vibe of the Raid for some reason, because this is like in the modern intervention episodes. Like that's what my mind went to. Mm-hmm. And I was like thinking, man, I got to tell these guys, like, I'm digging this more than the Raid already. Just like, because the Raid, of course, is like a popcorn flick. Like it doesn't have tons of like obvious psychology to it. You know what I mean? You can infer stuff, but it's just a fun action-packed movie.
100%.
This, I like slower movies. I love No Country for Old Men. That's my bread and butter. I mean, I live in the slowness of it. I don't know why, because I think it makes you reflect on your own life. And in a way, like you use your parallels, but sometimes when it's like so action-packed, there's no room. It's like fasten your seatbelt. So I had the vibe of going along slowly, which I loved. And we got to the first, I don't know what you call it, in the lair of the beast, and that's when things changed. When it got into his lair, it was brutal. And what it did was it had the thriller pacing, and then it jumped to, I guess you would call it the Hostel level or maybe Saw level of horror, like, meaning like they do call some of those movies like torture porn, and stuff, and they refer to it. I wouldn't say I was quite at that point, maybe not at all, because it was balanced by such an excellent thriller, Yes. So what I will say though is I'm going to start with the pros and then I'll do my cons. The pros are, I thought it was filmed beautifully. The lighting, everything was amazing. One slight like nitpick I'd give is some movies, when you're in a car, they will like do like a nighttime, or like in a video game, when it's nighttime, they give a blue tint so you can see things. Yeah. In this, they're like, we're just going to put the dome light on at every car scene, which I thought it made sense. If a girl's out in the snow, maybe she wanted people to see her or something. But some of the scenes, it just was like, oh, wow, it's really well lit in this car in like the middle of the night. But great lighting, great cinematography, a different vibe. This is so new to me. I saw a little bit of Old Boy back in the day. That's another story, but that's about it. I've seen Dragon League. Those are like weird hybrids where they were released in Hong Kong and they just happen to be filmed in Korea. It doesn't really always count, So what I will say is the pros are, the acting is stellar. Absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I'm talking, okay, and this is the thing, you guys keep throwing bangers to me. I don't want to be the guy that I can be pretty critical, but this is like, I'd say Academy Award winning acting. I mean, straight up. I mean, there's no Keanu Reeves crying moments that took me out. We were talking about Devil's Advocate for people listening earlier. So that's the pros of it. Great use of a sparse plot, like meaning it's like you could write it down in 2 sentences. And they extended that so great. The cons for me are, I'll have to tell another little side tangent, if you will. Halloween 2018, I love that movie. I thought that was such a great reboot for Halloween, I guess
the Rob Zombie one, right?
No, that's like 2007.
Shit. Okay.
I'm getting confused. So on Halloween, there's so many reboots on that. The Halloween 2007's Rob Zombie, but then there's the Halloween, I guess Danny McBride from he didn't direct it. He like produced it, I believe.
I think he wrote it as well. Did he co-write it?
Yeah, he had a lot of, and they made it excellent. That blew my mind.
Jamie Lee Curtis comes back and they're sort of podcasters as the.
Yes. And it's a trilogy. It's the last 3, but it's the first one. That's what I want to specify. So they had some crazy kills, but it had great humor. It had excellent acting. We were back. That was so cool. I love that. I absolutely love that. Then the next one I absolutely hated, Halloween Kills. They upped the kills so much. They lowered everything else. And Jamie Lee Curtis was like in a hospital the whole time. The kills were so through the roof that the only way to describe, let's say we're going to make a movie, us 3, and we're going to do a horror movie and we want it to be gory, anyone can stick these hoses and make the squibs just like blast over. There's a turning point where it's too much and it's almost comical, and it kind of ruins the film for me a little bit. You have to have that line. This for me at times went a little too overboard, and I will say, here's another thing I have to tell you guys. What happened was I was going to watch it on Wednesday. And then I was going to go through the commentaries and everything. I didn't even look up the year of this movie. I just wanted to go in so blind and just watch it. But I did peek a little on the back and say, oh, there's not a commentary. I'll just wait. I'll get it nice and close. Because like when I do YouTube videos, I like to honestly watch it and then get right on the mic. Because sometimes if I say like 3 days later, it's not as good. You know, you lose something. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm going to watch it the night before. I'll be honest. This morning, I was still like a little shook up from this movie. I really was. I was like, and there's only a few. I remember seeing 28 Days Later in the theater. My friend lived right by a graveyard. I dropped him off and I don't know if he said it. He like wanted me to watch him go to his house. We were like really spooked out from that, you know, certain movies. And what it is for me is that I'm not big on supernatural stuff. So when there's supernatural things, it's a complete different animal for me. When I watch whatever, The Curse of Emily Rose and she's in some barn, that's just like, it doesn't get to me. It can't get there because it doesn't have that grounded nature. I can enjoy it though. Halloween also has that Halloween-y thing where it's like, it's not going to happen. But this and stuff like 28 Days Later, you know, with it could happen, you know, and that scares me. It gets to me. It starts to like get under my skin. So it definitely shook me. But I will say there are moments, and not the beginning. Can you guys guess? It's not obvious which one I think went too far when it comes to like just a little too much.
Was it just the rape scene of the younger girl?
No, that was horrible. That was horrible.
It's also kind of interrupted that one.
Yes, because he never got to those moments. That was like the superhero element. No, what it was the stabbing in the car. I thought that was just, I thought the blood was just too much. It wasn't necessary. It started to like make me go, oh, guy, I don't know. It was odd. The sheer amount of blood. What I'll reference is there's a scene in Conan the Barbarian when King Osric wants Conan and Subutai and Valeria to go rescue his daughter. And after that scene, these guys come in and kill King Osric, but it's not in the movie. If you watch the deleted scene, they didn't put it in because he had so many squibs and there was so much blood that they all cracked up. They just died laughing and they didn't want to set it up all again. It was just too ridiculous. So my point is some of the scenes I feel, here's my takeaway. The movie is amazing. It got to me. It shook me. I feel if they had edited it a little bit, which might kill the point, because you guys can teach me about, maybe I need to be like startled by this Korean aspect of things, you know? Yeah, but I feel if they trimmed it a little bit, and I don't want to say sanitized, I think you can get the effects, especially watching some of these deleted scenes, like another sex scene in a kitchen. It's like, we get it. This dude is he is the devil. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, I feel an American version of this would have just had the opening dismemberment, and then maybe another one, but they would move more to like that, which I love, like the Blair Witchy Jaws thing where it's off screen sometimes just to probably to get an R rating, to be honest. They couldn't have like all these, like, you know, right. I just think they drove it home a little too much. That here's what it is a horror shock movie. It crushes. I mean, it scares you. It gets under your skin and it makes you, I mean, a lot of people would probably leave the theater, like, you know what I mean? I just mean people who didn't know you guys didn't give me a heads up, really. You know what I mean? Like if you were showing this to like, I don't know, a grandma or something, I mean, it's really brutal, you know?
It is.
What I'll say is on a horror level, it crushes it. And for the shock value is amazing, but I think that lowers the thriller aspect for me. And if they had got that down and if they just trimmed it, I feel like we could edit it or something. I think this would have been a world renowned. Like, I feel the acting is so amazing that if they could have just did like an R, like a true R one, you know, I think it could have been one of the best of all time. As is, it fell back into the cultish and a little into the under the radar, you know.
Interesting. I think
that's my like take. You know?
I'm going to let you keep on going, but I just want to interject at this point and say, like, there was I think without us consciously deciding it, because this happened quite organically, but this is a very good, almost midway point introduction into South Korean cinema, because they're kind of the Renaissance, if you like, or the beginning of modern cinema in South Korea really kicked off around about 2000, where they kind of really started putting in a huge amount of investment into their film industry, and we started seeing more and more films from South Korea starting to get released elsewhere. I mean, South Korea's had a cinema industry a lot longer than that, but it really found its groove around about 2000. So you're about 10 years in at this point, and where we are now in current day, I'd say this is almost tame by comparison to some of the stuff that comes afterwards. There's like I'm thinking of Project Wolf Hunting, where there is like maybe there's gallons and gallons of blood, right? It's kind of to a point where that was one of the stories that kind of made press when they're talking about the movie, was how much fake blood they'd used for it. And that's kind of so ramped up to a point of being even more hyper stylized. And Kim Ji-woon's not that guy. Like, I think he'll always keep things fairly grounded. And yeah, that when he does attack the two guys in the car, it's pretty bloody, but he's slicing arteries and there's a lot of arterial spray and those sort of situations. Right. He's a lot more restrained when it's like blunt instruments hitting someone's head. There'll just be a little bit of splatter on the windscreen and stuff. He is kind of, I think, for the most part, which is weird given some of the stuff in this movie, he is mostly got a foot rooted in realism most of the time, even when he's doing like anime adaptations. He did a great anime adaptation called Along the Wolf Brigade. That's kind of really tempered and sort of dials down an awful lot of the sort of anime stuff. But yeah, interesting. It's going to be, I think we'll definitely come back to Korean cinema, and I don't think we'll go out of our way to necessarily find something that's even more gory. But there's a really strange thing in South Korean cinema generally that I don't really see other countries doing quite as, I don't know if well is the right word, but it can switch on a dime between being really quite lighthearted and comedic to being super fucking dark in a way that's still quite shocking. And we went to see a movie last night, forgive me a tangent, that was really light-hearted for the most part. And there's going to be mild spoilers for Yedang the Snitch. If anyone's looking forward to seeing Yedang the Snitch, turn off for 30 seconds and then come back.
Sounds like an Irish title.
No, Yedang is basically like a sort of somebody who works as a broker between drug dealers and the police. So if you get busted for doing drugs, a broker will come in.
It just sounds like something in an alleyway in Ireland, like saying that. Yedang the Snitch, mate.
But there's like, it's a very light-hearted, almost Ocean's 11 style caper with this guy who's like young and hip, and he's like working as a broker. And then halfway through the middle of the movie, spoilers, the guy who thinks is his friend, who's like a prosecutor, arranges for him to be repeatedly injected with drugs, which happens probably about 6 times in a row, one of them right into the side of his cheek, which is like fucking grim to see. And then they douse his legs with gasoline and set fire to his legs while he's super high, so he can't feel his legs burning. Jesus. And it came so out of left field in a movie that up to that point was like split screen montages, and the guy's like, hey, almost like kind of like could have been a K-pop video. And it just took this really dark turn. And that's something that I think so unique and so wonderful about South Korean cinema, because it's like not afraid to go anywhere. And a lot of the time I never feel like they're doing it specifically for shock value. It's just sometimes the stories will go to those sort of places, but it can often be really graphic. Even shows like Bloodhounds, when his face gets cut, is really harsh for like a sort of Netflix series. And it's quite out of kind of context for the rest of the series, because it doesn't really go to that sort of visceral place again anywhere. But yeah, I think as we go deeper into our interventions, we'll definitely revisit more South Korean movies. And I think there is a couple that'll maybe, I don't think they'll impact you psychologically in the same way, but they'll probably make you wince from a painful point of view.
I think our next intervention should be The Sadness.
Oh, the Taiwanese movie. Yeah.
I think, Jason, your head would explode with that one.
Well, we have a blank spot, and I think it's come. Yeah, I mean, if we fill it in,
we couldn't do that to you. That's the only film I've seen my wife walk out of.
I kind of struggle getting through The Sadness.
Wow! I love how I'm getting a vibe of Jason. This is our tame one. We're helping you out here. We have a lot like the one that
It's just that The Sadness is so much more than this. It's way beyond.
Wow. Yeah. Well, here's my thing I want to say is that the reason, because it's so good, the acting, because the thriller, because I bought in and I was really, really invested, which I must say, that actor, I mean, he's just, we often say star quality and screen presence, boom, instantly he was just the man,
Who are you talking about?
The main actor, the protagonist. Yeah. Sorry. You guys got to help.
Secret Service agent.
Yes. Yeah. Which is odd to say protagonist. That's we'll get to that, but that alters. No wonder you looked a little like, wait. he's amazing. And I think they did a good job, similar to the Raid, where you have a little bit of room to make the connection in the story. You know, in the Raid, you have the pregnancy and by the bed, and right, his wife's pregnant in the Raid, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and in this one, same thing. But that little connection where he goes in the bathroom and sings, that's beautiful. You get so much there, you know.
Very good.
And he definitely gave me a Bruce Lee quality to him, because he has that intensity where it's just like, you know, because Bruce Lee, some people, they'll say, oh, his acting and stuff, and it's like, dude, he did like 4 movies and he didn't have a lot of lines. I'm sure it would have blossomed, but the point is his screen presence and the intensity. You know, he didn't need, I mean, he just was lightning, and this guy had that in him. And on a funny note, before I forget, when he walks, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Shenmue, the Dreamcast game.
Yeah, of course.
Classic. Anyone? Okay, even if you look up Shenmue right now, he wears the. I don't know if they did a little nod. I mean, that's Japanese, but he has the same exact code, and he has like a walk like the guy. And anyone listening, look up Shenmue if you know this. I was like, man, this is like a straight Shenmue vibe, you know, in this guy, and the little Korean towns kind of.
That the game that was the guys who'd gone to do the Yakuza series.
Yeah, I believe so. So. Yeah, I think it's also Sega. Has something to do with Sega, because you can go into an arcade and like play you know, like an arcade within an arcade, that type of thing. You can play the game. But I got that vibe probably because there's also, I'm not as familiar with this, but when you watch like documentaries on like Singapore and even see in Japan, very cleansely a lot of the cities. I'm sure there's like, you know, like shanty towns and stuff. But when you see like when he's going to get the first guy and he's going up the roof, everything just looks like you could almost like eat cereal off the ground. I mean, just some of the nighttime shots. And I will say, though, I have to mention this. I do feel this guy has some holes in his his martial arts game. I can see it, you know. And what it is they did do, I mean, we've probably said this too many times, they did do the Jason Bourne close-up stuff. I thought it worked great, though. It wasn't like, because I feel this guy has some like jujitsu leanings. He does great Aikido moves, really beautiful. But when he had to square up and do kicks, I was like, oh, that looks a little like, it just seemed like maybe like
stiff, maybe,
or maybe a guy who he was so excellent in everything else, they had to teach him martial arts, kind of like, you know, because I know Zhang Ziyi, she wasn't originally a martial artist, but I thought she looked really great.
Comes from a dance background, though. I think Lee Byung-Hun's not really a martial artist. I mean, he's Storm Shadow in the first 2 American G.I. Joe movies, but I think he was mostly doubled for a lot of the more intense stuff in that. He does do a little bit of action in some of his other movies, but he's not really, it doesn't come from that much of a martial arts background, though I'm assuming he's probably done his military service, as almost all South Koreans have to. And you do get some hand-to-hand training, hand-to-hand combat training. But I don't think he's meant to be, he's never sold to us as being that type of guy. Like he's not a fighting
action hero, quote unquote.
Well, good point. Hero. And that's probably, even if you go into the story, I guess, because I was getting a Raid vibe. I thought I was going to be seeing some like insane, this guy, if you see him, you don't know. I thought he was going to just be like the next Jet Li or something. I didn't know what was coming, you know. But here's the thing: those kicks when he kicked the guy on the motorcycles, that's a little okay. But it passed. It was good enough. The bad one is when he decked that girl after I can't remember, she had a syringe or something up in the hallway. The girlfriend of the crazy guy. He does these punches and they were just like really bad. But it's okay because maybe he's not supposed to be like whatever. Perfect. But it would work for a cop though, that, you know, it was realistic. They were like haymakers and, you know, it just looked a little, so I'll just say that guy's amazing. I thought the wife, you almost wish she had a little more. I felt the chemistry was enough. I think this is why I had an issue. You guys have this too. You're doing it to me. But when you love a movie so much, I would love to show my dad these things and different things. Me not knowing I was getting into, I just wish there was a version. I think there's the bones of a movie here that could have been a worldwide that wouldn't push people away. But I might be missing an obvious thing. Maybe you guys could tell me. Do you think if we did tame down those things, it might lose that visceral, like it would lose the power? Because this guy, I'm telling you, he reminded me of a roach you would step on, and he's like, you know, you can't a roach, even to kill it, it's still living in your mind.
Watch the other cut, because the other cut definitely loses an awful lot of the more, should we say, egregious elements, and I think it completely removes the sex scene with the girlfriend of the cannibals.
Oh, that's on the deleted scenes.
Ironically,
only,
that's the one we have.
So that wasn't in the version that you guys saw, right?
No.
Okay, then you
so that's
saw
why I mentioned there might be 3, because what it was is he did the movie and they wouldn't approve it, so he had to get it down to some Korean rating. So then he made the Korean version, which has that scene in the kitchen, and then the unrated international version, which me and Shaun have, maybe because we got it in America. Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, because when I put it in, I had to. I'm so used to Shaw scopes and all those, I had to switch to the American disc on my player. That one doesn't have the kitchen scene. But you're saying you believe those 2 dragon have like other alter things?
Yeah, there's a few other shots. There's kind of like a scene when after he's cut off the arm quite close to the beginning, you sort of see a shot from above of it dropping into the basket, and there's kind of other little moments. There's a pretty good website, I think I can remember, that tells you exactly.
Oh yeah, I looked that up.
Like moviecensorship.com.
Moviecensorship.com. Yep.
And it'll tell you kind of.
And I noticed each line was Korean and international. Said that on the page.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But, I mean, it's not going to make it like. Viewable for all. Like, it's not going to make it kind of universally kind of acceptable, because a lot of people will struggle with this movie, not even for the things that we've been talking about, just purely in the terms of the subject matter of kind of there's not really a single woman in this movie that has a good time, right? There's
right
for every single female character that we encounter, who are all, for the most part, really, even in a weird way, the crazy girlfriend in the cannibal's place, none of them seem like particularly bad people. They're all just in bad situations. And the one that always hits me the hardest, weirdly, because it seems like it's the most completely unnecessary and entirely almost Lee Byung-hun's fault, is the sister, quite close to the end. Like that one breaks my heart.
What do you mean she's kidnapped?
No, well, when he goes after her at the end, when he goes and kills the dad and the sister.
Yeah, I got lost in that part. So, she was kidnapped by him, right?
I thought she was killed.
We don't see her again, right?
Well, I got lost there. So he was killing the father, and then she shows up, rings the doorbell, and comes in, and you see her walk in. Then you don't see anything. Then later you see a girl like laying in an alley, and when he calls into this whole end thing is he's going to turn himself in. What's the main character's name in the movie?
The killer.
No, that's funny. Every time it's weird. You don't know who is the main character.
Soo Hyun.
That's the Soo Hyun
is the hero.
Okay,
if there is a hero.
So Soo Hyun, he is tipped off that what the killer's going to do. He's going to turn himself in, but he's also going to kill the family first. So when the scene cuts and I swear you saw her laying next to like a dumpster or something in some outdoor, and then he says to the guy on the phone, "Yeah, I'm turning myself in," and he says, "Well, what'd you do to the daughter?" He says her name. He goes, "Oh, you'll have to see." So I thought he took her from the house and then dumped her in some alley. That's what
she gone.
I thought she was dead.
I think he killed her too.
Right. Okay. So that was obvious, but there's some moments in this movie. Did you guys? You probably didn't get as confused as me because you've seen it a few times. There's like the 2 fathers I was getting confused with, because there's like the father of the daughter. He's the police chief, right?
Yeah.
Then his father was also a police chief, right? Like,
that's not. I don't think that's his dad. Like, there's the only father that he goes to see is his father-in-law, if you like. It's the
okay. Well, who's the one? They're sitting on like a bench, and the guy's smoking. He's saying,
"That's just the chief's like buddy almost."
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the other police chief who seems like a slack, who can't get anything done. He's just mad at the main character. So like, you remember at the end they're like fighting before lets him go in the house. The trifecta of them. Maybe that would help me to see it again, but that's the thing. I feel better now. Last night I was like, I don't even know if I ever want to watch this again, because it like hit me in that way, like when Shaun said
more. You'll see more on every viewing. I'll give you an example, actually. Sorry to kind of
no, I want to hear your I call you the rewatch king, because you always like the movie like it. You might really not like it as much or love it way more. Isn't usually always land in the same spot for you.
Well, no, that's very true. And I think an interesting thing about this film, like something I picked up on this viewing that I've never picked up before, and I don't really know why. If you think about the film, if you think about the very, very first scene, which is literally just us driving down the street in a car, and little do we know at that point it's the killer's car. There's a genius moment, right? The director didn't need to do this whatsoever. He could have just had the car driving down the street, then he finds the girl, and then he murders the girl, right? Easy. What he does at the beginning is such a small move, and it's so clever. The killer drives past a police car. And if you think about it, that police car right then and there could have put an end to this. If they just pulled him over and like checked him out, and he would have been, I'm sure, like a suspicious character or whatever it may be. And it's just those little additions.
I missed. No, so coming at him and you see the lights. It's not like a parked police. Okay, I missed.
No, there's a police car that drives past him, and also I like the touch that his car has angel wings on the rearview mirror. It's just such it's such clever like nuances of this.
And when those went on was like when he was going in the mode, right? Like there's a point where they turn on, and it's like, oh, you know.
I think it's just because it got a bit dark. Like after he's picked up the group of kids, and he's just got one girl left, and she's
thematic relevance of that. I just love, and I think there's a whole kind of obviously there is literally no angel in this film unless you consider the girlfriend the angel, but every single character, not every single character, but so many characters in this film see a different version of the devil. Some think it's Choi Min-sik, some think it's Lee Byung-hun, and I just think it's an amazing exploration of how violence can turn someone into the monster they least want to be. And my question, I guess, to you, and I've always kind of toyed with this question, and I kind of considered it one way for the longest time, and then on this viewing, I actually changed my opinion, which is very strange. Why does he cry at the end? The last scene of the entire film, he's walking down the street, and he's done it. It's all over. It's completed. Why does he cry? Is it because he's like letting it all out? He's got time to grieve now. He's accomplished his mission and he's grieving. Or is it because he's finally realized that he is the monster? That he has finally done the one thing to this guy that kind of has finally converted him into the monster. He killed him in front of his own fucking family. And, you know, which version of the crying is it? And I used to think it was because he was relieved and he was able to grieve. But on this viewing, because I kind of explored the avenues of violence and monsters and who's the devil, and I don't know, at the end of this watch, I was just like, oh no, I think he's upset because he's the devil, that he's the monster now. So it's interesting what you get from numerous viewings of this film. And a lot of people will watch it and think, you know, this is just a ultra violent serial killer flick that, you know, has no worth, has no depth. And I think quite the contrary. I think it's quite a clever exploration of that violence. And I will say that in a way, this film, if you really think about it, it has moments that are funny.
Oh, God, yeah, there's loads.
It has like a very kind of dark black humor running.
But I think you could sympathize why it wasn't. I think you got those more when you watched it later, right?
Because I think you might be right.
Because I was like roller coaster racing, like because like when it go, I don't want to like I want you to like keep going with what you were saying, but at the very end. I wanted to know more. I was like, don't, like I had sympathy for that guy. I was like, I can't take much more. Don't rip his jaw off and put it in his eye. Like, you know what I mean? And that's why I felt like that was good at the end when he did the cigarette in the eye and then he set up the guillotine. I thought that was like nice. Okay, I thought this guy was so enraged. I thought each arm was being chopped off and like mailed to people or something. You know, I was like, so that's my like nutshell thing. I have dual things. I feel. This is like a question to you guys. I feel if they made, I'll call it the Jaws effect, because you know when Steven Spielberg was making Jaws, he had so much trouble with the shark that they had to change the movie to be everything's unseen, and you don't even see the first kill to halfway through. And they said that made the movie amazing because if it had all the kills shown with the blood and constantly, I think it wouldn't have become what it was, you know? And that's why I feel there's a movie here that if they just tamed it down, the grotesqueness of it and the dismemberment, give enough and just, I hate it because like, I feel I'm doing something sacrilege. You're not supposed to do this to these Korean movies. No, but I feel if they did that, this would be like, I don't know. I don't know if I would say it wouldn't get to the Oscars because of the themes of it and what the guy's doing. There's a lot of things that would, you know, Oscars like Forrest Gump, you know, and stuff like that usually, you know? So what, like, I just feel, do you guys agree that this movie could have been more world renowned and be like regarded as one of the greats if it had been a little less Saw and Hostel-esque in its gore?
I think, well, I would put a pin in that question and I would assign you a Bittersweet Life as a sort of additional post-episode bit of homework, right?
The interventions are connecting now. Like,
yeah, well, not even necessarily for an episode, but I would love to do it as an episode. But that is a movie that has the same main actor, so it's Lee Byung-hun as well. There are definitely elements of slightly uncomfortable violence in it, but it's nowhere near the same level.
No.
But there's a lot more anguish for the character. Like he's in much more conflict morally and situationally in what he's going through, and it's more of all the things that from listening to hear you speak about I Saw the Devil, a lot of the things that have resonated with you the most are things that have the volume turned up on in A Bittersweet Life, and the bits that you are a bit less comfortable with are almost, I wouldn't say they're not prevalent or not present at all, because there's one torture sequence in the middle of it, but it's not the same sort of thing at all, and it's much more of a sort of character study of one guy in an impossible situation, and how he kind of has to navigate that situation. And it's the movie that is probably slightly better renowned over I Saw the Devil internationally. In Kim Ji-woon's
it's a sequel or a prequel?
No, totally unrelated. It just happens.
I mean, did it come out before or after?
I think it came out a little bit
good question.
before. I think it's slightly earlier. I think not far. They're not that far apart. I think they're. I Saw the Devil is 2010. Bittersweet Life's 2005. And
wow,
there's almost a little bit. I mean, not quite to the same extreme, but there's a bit of a Scorsese De Niro thing going on with Kim Ji-woon and Lee Byung-hun. Like he's put him in a lot of his movies. Sometimes it'll just be a little cameo, but there's kind of from the films that he's made, 3 where he's a huge part of, and they're all so completely different from
Dude, that makes me so happy, because I want more of this guy. I mean, he's really
incredible.
He's great.
One of my favorite Korean actors, because he's been horribly used so far anytime that he's stepped across to try and do stuff in the States. So he's in, like I said, he's in the 2 G.I. Joe movies. He's Terminator in Terminator Genesis briefly. He's
okay. I tried to wipe that from my brain. Oh, wait, okay.
But yeah, he's briefly a Terminator in that, and he's in Red 2, I think.
Oh God, is he?
Retired, extremely dangerous movies. It's a sort of fabled, crazy assassin who kind of comes into the group. Might even be in both of them, actually. And he's in the Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, Magnificent Seven.
I forgot about that film.
But he still keeps going back every time that he does a movie in Hollywood. He'll go back and do like 3 in South Korea, and they're invariably always the much more interesting things. He's eminently watchable, even in really slow. Like I've seen him in ultra slow political thrillers, often like set kind of in the 60s or the 70s, that are like very slow paced, but he's still, like you say, that you picked up on it really early. He's eminently watchable, even when he's not necessarily saying stuff. He's got an incredible presence or screen presence.
Well, he doesn't say much in Squid Game. And he's quite the presence in Squid Game. He's got just like an evil face to him in that one. It's just
Is that Korean, Squid Game?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You'll be happy to know he's in an upcoming film called K-pop Demon Hunters, which I'm excited for. I think it's an animated film because he's just provided his voice. So
okay.
Do you guys? Yeah, so that's what I'm kind of like struggling with. And I did peek a little bit. I wanted to go in some Reddit forums and just type "I Saw the Devil" and see what the consensus is. And wow, it is really polarized. There are people saying it. What I'm guessing is, if you want the thriller, people, they don't love the horror as much. And it's not that it fails as a thriller. It's just that I think horror fans love this. When I'm reading, the horror people can hang, and I haven't been watching as much like gore horror that I don't feel is conditioned. So I felt like my guard was let down, and I got in that thriller mode. And like you said, it maybe isn't just thriller horror. It's a Korean thing where it's like they have breakneck
a hybrid.
Well, because what you saw last night, it's like kind of comedic, and then it goes to something like insane. So it's the breakneck nature, and it makes it feel a little bit like you can feel it coming, because after I just like, here's another one, oh my, and I'm usually not squeamish with that stuff. What it is it's because it got me, and it got me invested in the characters, It's kind of like the movie The Village, which I thought was kind of a strange movie, Joaquin Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
The moment, spoiler, but where he gets stabbed, it's like that moment he gets stabbed. The movie had nothing like that really. So when that came, it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
And so I was kind of in that mode, like kind of relaxed and like, even though it's short, I don't know why, because we get that first dismemberment pretty quick,
Yes.
This movie did a great thing of like the juxtaposition of the thriller and the horror. It was beautiful, but I think the horror just kind of, like I've said a few times now, just kind of made me feel that on the thriller aspect, it threw it off a bit for me, it threw.
Yeah, I think there's a discussion to be had there, and the discussion is obviously some people just don't care for that level of violence, or do find it like a bit of a out of left field, if they're not expecting it, like yourself. I think the other kind of thing I'm leaning on is the discussion there could be, can you really emphasize the monstrous nature of both the lead and the killer without that violence? Like, you have to depict that Choi Min-sik in this film is a fucking evil piece of shit. And I personally don't know, like, I'm not even debating either way, but I don't know whether you could have his severe evilness without the hyper violence or without the extreme violence. Now, I don't know. It's possible. I haven't seen a cut without it, and I'm genuinely interested to see a cut without it. But I don't know. There's an argument to be had. Can this be tame-ish and still hit its themes in a solid and emphatical way?
I don't think that it's the violence or the gore that we're seeing that's making it as impactful as it is. I think it's the context of the movie that it exists within. And a lot of it is how despicable Choi Min-sik's character is and how reprehensible he is. There's almost like if you're cooking with a frying pan and you splash yourself with hot grease and try and get it off. It's like the movie stains you in a little bit, where you're complicit to everything that's going on on both sides. You're right there with the killer when he's doing his despicable shit, and you're right there with Lee Byung-hun when he's increasingly doing more and more crazy, fucked up shit. And the film never really, I think there's something Kubrickian in the way that Kim Ji-woon directs this movie, where he's very like, I'm just going to pull back, and this stuff's going to happen. I'm not really going to tell you how to feel about it. Like, he doesn't manipulate you in that sort of way. And like, another weird tangent, but stick with me on this. I just saw Fight or Flight a couple of days ago, which, Shaun, I'm assuming you've seen already.
Look, that's my favorite film of the year so far. Okay. I absolutely love that film.
It's great fun, but there's so much more gore and violence in that movie.
Yeah,
Korean.
You're laughing, right? No,
it's an American.
And you're laughing through it all. So there's literally people getting sliced apart with a chainsaw, right?
Yeah,
and it's like ho 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 ho. So there's much.
That's the point. And we're coming from the Chang Che camps. I mean, I'm used to like plugging the intestines back in.
This is all played for laughs. In Fight or Flight, it's entirely played for laughs, right?
But you nailed it, though, Dragon. That's what you're saying about it.
That's a very American current day way of making movies, where it's almost, and it's much more egregious in the Marvel movies, and almost to a point where it's really starting to make me shut off from those films, because it gives them, I really enjoyed Fight or Flight before we go any further, but in the case of the Marvel movies, they have no weight or substance to them anymore, because no matter what happens, somebody cracks wise like every fucking 30 seconds, or no matter when somebody will say something really heartfelt, one of the other characters will instantly dismiss what they're saying with a wee quip, right? Yeah. And that's just the way that those movies are at the moment, as if the audience is going to lose interest if they don't laugh in any more than 5 minutes at a time. So I think it's all about kind of the context in this, because there's not nearly as much gore or violence in I Saw the Devil as there was in Fight or Flight. Probably 10%.
That's a good point. It's all context, really. Personally, I think the most, like, the nastiest bit in I Saw the Devil for me, and it's very obviously, full disclosure here, I'm a huge horror fan. I'm massive on gore. I've always been quote unquote a gore hound, and I've watched the most violent stuff possible. which kind of ties into what I'm about to say, because the violence in this film, the only thing that really makes me go, oh, is the Achilles tendon scene. That's rough. But the most kind of horrible thing in this film is when Choi Min-sik has the second victim, or was it? It's the younger girl that he kidnaps.
Greenhouse.
Yes. And he says to the girl, your skin's so soft, this is going to be easy. And I'm just like, now that's fucked up. Like, the fact that you're saying to your victim, basically, my knife is going to go through your skin.
That's actually the first girl. That's the first.
Oh, that's the first one?
Yeah.
There you go. And it's just the fact that he's saying to his victim, there's no one else there, my knife is going to go through your flesh with ease. Like, the very concept of that phrase, that bit of script is horrendous to me. And the fact that this film was actually written by a first-time screenplay writer. This is his first film. And
who'd go on to have a crazy career. Like, we'll maybe get onto him in a minute, right?
Yes, he's a special guy, and I think the script in this film is pretty razor sharp for what it is. But does
he stay in the crew? Like, you know how you said the team up of this main actor and the director?
He went on to become a director in his own right, and he's maybe not got quite to the levels of sophistication as Kim Ji-woon has. His movies that he's directed increasingly over the last couple of years have been a little bit more, I guess, popcorny, more entertaining fare, but in a South Korean way, which is still pretty crazy. Like, he wrote and directed the 2 Witch movies. Not the Robert Eggers witch movie, but the Witch kind of being like borderline superhero movies that came out of South Korea. And he did The Child, which Shaun, you had a chance to see The Child.
I have.
I really enjoyed The Child. The Child's
really
fucking great.
Wait, so you don't mean the witch with that weird spelling back in medieval times?
No.
I really love that one. I really love that one.
That witch is great. The South Korean versions of the witch are very, very different.
Very different.
And I really like them.
You don't need to spell it out for me necessarily. I think I'm catching. Well, how would you sum up Korean cinema? That, you know, because I'm really a fish out of water, obviously, with this. Because I was telling Shaun earlier, we talked about Carlong, we can throw all these names. I'm like, I can barely even tell you again. Like, this is all so new to me. That's why I'm learning a lot. I love it. I mean, it's a big thing to say Korean cinema, but does this have a lot of the hallmarks of the movies, or is this an extreme? I mean, do they have like your standard action fares and your like?
Sometimes a little bit. Yeah.
I think the fight choreographer of this film is the guy from City of Violence. I don't know if you've seen City of Violence, which is a fantastic Korean action film, like martial arts action film.
Cool.
And I believe Tarantino loves that film. And it's incredible. And the guy who stars in that film and choreographs the action is the guy that choreographed the action in this. And he's done quite a few like flat out martial arts films. And it kind of, there's such variation in Korean cinema. Me personally, I love dark Korean thrillers. That's what I say. I'm always a big fan. Like, I like.
It's in our intro. It's in our.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think Jason, you would love a film like The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil, something like that. And I'll even go as far as to say, I think from what you've said about, you know, being more of a thriller person than a horror person, I think you might even like A Tale of Two Sisters a little more than this. That's got horror aspects to it, but it's kind of more of a mystery, like a thriller mystery. And that's a great film. That's a fantastic. I watched it again recently. Fantastic.
Same director, Jason. So same director who did this movie made A Tale of Two Sisters. And that's a little bit earlier on in his career too.
Like Old Boy period, kind of? Because he did Old Boy, right?
That was
the villains in Old Boy. Okay, you know what's interesting? When I was watching that behind the scenes, that director, I don't know if he didn't want to be in it or something. Like, it's all the action choreographer.
Yeah,
right?
He doesn't do anything. The director.
And also the director kind of reminded me of the villain. So when I first saw him, I thought maybe the villain directed it. Because just their hair and something, just a shot of them. I was like, whoa! If that guy directed this, that's even more insane. You know? Like,
Choi Min-sik's fantastic. He's great in everything.
What level would you this villain? I mean, you have Darth Vader and these different levels. There are villains that will not like I said, it's like a roach. You have to there's no turning them. Maybe at the end he tried to give it like the guy's going to kind of like he was trying to plea, but it seemed obviously he was faking it because I don't know. It was weird. It was it's like he was testing out different things on him. He's like, oh, I will be a good guy from now on. He's like, wait, actually kill me. You're taking too long.
That's an easy debated scene, I think. Like what he means. Is he actually the repentant sad guy, or is he the mean-spirited, like, fuck you, kill me guy? Which one's he testing out, and which one is he actually? I think that's an interesting scene.
Everything about his character, I think, could be reduced down to a New York, very short guy with an attitude of, what, you think you're better than me? Yeah. It seems to motivate
to
everything
the nth degree, though, right? Like
all of his stuff, I think, and specifically targeted towards women. But he's always that, because he's still really quite vain. We still see him even literally after he's killed the very first victim. He's like putting on aftershave and smoothing his hair down. He's trying to kind of get himself basically looking. Yeah. I really like the guitar playing scene. But he is, I think he's just really got this crazy chip on his shoulder and a real kind of hair trigger temper. Like, it's not, I never kind of caught him as being a particularly kind of premeditated serial killer. He's a very opportunistic type of killer. So if he hadn't seen the girl at the bus stop on her own, I don't think he would have necessarily gone out looking for someone that night.
No.
If he hadn't had the kids in the back of the van and only had one left and she fell asleep, he probably wouldn't have taken her to the greenhouse. It's all just because opportunity has presented itself.
Yeah.
And I think he's got, weirdly, we see he's had a past. He's got a kid, right? He's never see that in these sort of movies. A serial killer is always like a loner who's never managed to have any sort of relationship with anyone. And he's estranged from his parents, but at some point he's been in a long enough relationship to make this son, right? So it's very unusual, but I think he's a lot less of the kind of John Doe type serial killer where his entire being revolves around the act of his murders and what he's going to kind of do next.
That's so interesting that you say that. Yeah, he's like, if you take Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, they're not similar. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're both serial killers and both kind of inherently evil people, but there seems to be like a goal or a mission for Buffalo Bill where he has to get these victims. But this guy, like you say, he's far more like looking for an opportunity, or not looking for an opportunity. It's just when one comes along. Even in the taxi scene, he looks almost like, oh God, really? I'm gonna have to kill these guys? Like they're fucking trying to get me. And he looks almost like, oh God, all right, here's an opportunity for me to fuck up these guys. I don't know. I think he's complex. I think the characters in general are very complex in this film.
Well, hey, we should bring it up. He has a buddy, which that scene, you know what I mean? That because I want to hear Shaun's take on that. Is what kind of that teetered on like an SNL thing. Like they could have really lost it there with that guy eating that. It's like it did bring some comedic value kind of a bit. It just is kind of like
screwdriver through the hand and the handle comes out.
And it's like brilliant. That scene is so good. That little bit of comedy. Oh my god.
But just what we're talking about here, of course there's outliers like Ted Bundy, which kind of like go against the John Doe thing. Like Ted Bundy did have he was like winning over his lawyer and stuff. Like famously the judge said to Ted Bundy, if you hadn't done all this, I would have probably hired you for, and I'm thinking, this guy killed like 36 women. You're giving him like
charming.
Yes. So this guy is not trying. I mean, this guy, even his own mother is like, what happened? Why does he look so like scary? But I like when they interjected the human things, because he doesn't just turn into Michael Myers. Well, that's what's strange. If the other guy, it wasn't Michael Myers, but he showed up in a slasher way that anytime, usually in a slasher movie, there's a sex scene, and before it's going to like consummate, the killer comes in, the knife goes in the neck. And this one, it was rape scenes, and the main hero would come in, and that's what shocked me, is that they were having such a square away in that greenhouse so early on. I thought the guy was going to die and have some sort of understudy. I didn't know what was going on.
I wondered what you'd think. I've got it in my notes. Ask Jason about what he thought.
I was like, what? I mean, gosh, this is like like, I love Apocalypto, that movie, how it builds up to that crescendo, you know? That's like one of my favorite ever. And this had like a scene, they're running, and we're only like 20 minutes in, and he has his sickle out. It's like, what is going to happen here? And the fact that he did that catch and release on him and let him go, That was brilliant.
So
that was brilliant. But I want to ask you guys, where does this guy? And we'll get to the buddy scene, or that's what's strange. But like, you wonder where this stands. I kept thinking of Silence of the Lambs. I kept going back to that for some reason because there's obviously some parallels. But it made like Hannibal Lecter seem a little tame in a way. It made him seem like this guy wouldn't have the conversations with Jodie Foster. He's so like compelled and demented. That's what the buddy scene kind of threw me off. They're kind of like, they're having a little tug of war where the guy was going to out insane him. And he's like, oh, really? And what's so weird is he's so like, he's like Thulsa Doom, and he's so possessive of their minds that this guy is so hobbled at this point, broken wrist, can't walk, blood all over him. But he's like the Energizer Bunny or something. You can't take this guy down until his final breath.
Angry. He's so angry about what I think is wonderful is when Lee Byung-hun comes in and saves the first girl that he saves. And there's this scrap, and Lee Byung-hun like fucks him up. He's doing all these fucking arm holds and things like that. And you can tell Choi Min-sik fucking hates being dominated by this guy. He's like, he's enraged that he's being dominated, like almost like he's being emasculated by this guy. He's taken away the power that he has over these women. And I think it's interesting that he carries that anger onto his next victim, and he's just like, now I've got to unleash this like pure ferocity for this guy who's just dominated me, emasculated me, made me look bad, and he just has to kind of unleash it, and he has to find that, that opportunity that pops up. And I think that's important, that he carries this one-up attitude that, hey, this guy emasculated me, I'm going to go and fuck with him now. He never concedes. He's never like, all right, I get it. This guy, he's bested me. He's always like, nope, I've got to get in. And I mean, even I think the cannibal says at the end, right? He always like gets you back.
Even.
Yeah, he always gets even. He never fucking gives up. And I don't know. I love that aspect of the film because as soon as the quote unquote hero puts the tracker in the serial killer's body, you secretly know, oh, this is just going to be one up the whole time. Like, he's going to get in, release him, the killer's going to get angry, he's going to lash out, then he's going to find it. And it's one big kind of circle. It just goes on and on and on until the ultimate climax. And the ultimate climax had to be the fucking grimmest, worst thing you can imagine for someone basically being killed by their own family, essentially. I think that's another level. It's so clever.
And shout out to that special effect there. I have to say, for beheadings, and I'm new to some of these, the best beheading special effects I've ever seen in my life.
It's good. I mean, it's very good.
Her head in the amazing. Yeah, the head in the water is the other one. That's phenomenal.
Head in the water. Head in the water. He flips it, and then at the end, I'm trying to think of other movies, like even in Apocalypto, they're doing all these beheadings up, and this is like 2006. You get the CGI vibe when you see it or something on the ground or something. This now, and that's something. Do you guys know the practical to CGI level?
Oh, this is all practical.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah. Then what? How did they do that face?
They spliced two shots together. Oh, for the guillotine, they spliced two shots together.
Yeah. When they roll by his mother's leg and she's screaming.
Well, they have him on the guillotine and they're filming that. And then what they do is they take the guillotine chopping through a dummy, and then they just splice them together at the perfect moment.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Genius. But
when I'm saying when the head rolled, when his head rolled on the ground, though, it looks so realistic.
It's a great cast.
How can that be practical?
Yeah, it's very good.
Man.
I think they have a lot of budget for that because, quite frankly, the special effects in this, they're great, but there's not many of them, right? They're not like, it's not a big budget fucking super special effects movie. So I think when they did throw some money at special effects, they threw enough at it to make it look great.
Yeah, that scene that got me I thought was a little too much, that behind the scenes was interesting, where it had a little bit of that Evil Dead vibe to it, where they're saying there was some lighting they didn't like, so some guy was holding up a mattress. And it was weird. It was showing the scene. He said, oh, if you could see that scene, you'd laugh. But I was like, oh, I thought we were watching it. And that was strange because the making of, they're in a green room and the car's just spinning around.
Yeah.
But when I was watching the thing, I guess I was so like, oh my gosh, the amount of blood. I didn't notice the car was spinning. Like, I didn't get that effect. Did you see the making of it?
That's just when he's pulling into the car.
It felt like the camera was spinning.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I meant like
the taxi scene,
the taxi cab.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
it looks like the camera's spinning round rather than the
that's
car
what was
actually
spinning.
spinning.
Oh,
So I
okay,
think they're trying to get the camera movement rather than the actual car.
But did you get that effect that, like, when I was watching it, I didn't get the effect of the camera spinning around when I was watching
I think I did. I think I did, because it kind of goes to the back seat then back to the front seat. So you kind of see it going on. But yeah, like I said, there might be even something that you watch on if you ever decide to watch it again and go, oh yeah, I see it now. So just little things that you pick up along the way.
His camera work throughout the whole film is incredible. There's an amazing shot when he's in when Lee Byung-hun, when our hero is quite early on, when he's in the apartment that he's rented out to basically do his faces pinned up onto the wall.
Yeah.
And he comes out because he can't sleep, and he comes up to look at one of the faces. And then we pan straight out the window on the outside over the city up to the sky and then down, and we find what the killer's up to at that point.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm sure it's a couple of shots stitched together, but just how well they filmed, and I don't know exactly how they've done the shot from whether they've had a helicopter. I wouldn't have thought so, but there's such an amazing transition between looking really close in the room to just out over the cityscape. It's so slickly done. Like I say, he's a surgeon, that dude. It's like there's a impeccableness to the way that he puts together his movies. And some people have to do the good, the bad, the weird.
I just bought that. I need to watch it again.
Oh, so good. That couldn't be further away from this, Jason. That's all out Western comedy.
Fun. A lot of fun, that one.
Same director, though.
Yeah.
He's versatile. He's very versatile.
Our hero in this plays the villain in The Good, Bad, the Weird, but a real mustache twirling Western villain, right?
Okay.
And it's so good, and that's much more
Tombstone,
gunfights.
Korean Tombstone or something?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little kind of shades
a
of
little
it.
sillier.
It's funnier. Yeah.
Sillier, okay.
Like funnier, yeah.
I
did not predict that with this director. I did not predict him having a comedic side.
First kimchi Western, right?
Well, I'll stand by. I actually love the director's Hollywood effort. I actually love
me too. He made a
Stand.
Schwarzenegger movie.
It's a fantastic film.
I'm such a diehard Schwarzenegger fan, and my friend, and I know this was like when I went to the Arnold Classic in 2005, and I competed in MMA, and Arnold was there as the governor, and he was walking by, and I was like, oh, I couldn't meet him because he had all the security and stuff, but I got to see him in person, and it was so great. And then his first movie he did, The Last Stand, my buddy warned me, he's like, man, I watched it, and he's like, I don't think you should watch it. It like was that bad. I know I held off. I never saw it. I went right.
So much fun.
Do you know what was my comeback for Arnold was, which I actually liked, was Escape Plan with him and Sly. I like that. Because, well, it was kind of weird with it was just like a prison drama. Mm-hmm. But when Arnold got the helicopter gun off the helicopter, I was like, we're back, baby. I was like, this is like...
Oh, then you'll love The Last Stand. He does loads of crazy stuff like that in The Last Stand. Yeah, it's really
I just knew Johnny Knoxville was in it, and I was warned like it wasn't good, so I didn't want that to be my first comeback.
I think it's fine. I think compared to like other movies of its sort, like kind of like The Need for Speed or anything that's got like a slight high-speed pursuit element to it, it's pretty good fun. Who's the FBI agent in that? Is it Forrest Whitaker?
Hold on, I have it up here.
I also skipped Maggie.
Oh, wait, no, it's Luis Guzman, isn't it? Oh, no, that's not the FBI agent. Oh, it is Forrest Whitaker. Well done.
Yeah. I dig it. I like The Last Stand. I think it's kind of
I'll watch
also for his first time making a movie in the States when his English is not great.
Fun. Yeah,
it's very well put together.
It's so good. It's very silly as well in the best way, and he does the best thing you can do with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where at that age you have to make him be this kind of old, grizzled, washed-up sheriff, and it's the perfect role for him. It's so
I gotta
good.
watch this now.
Yeah, it's great.
And while we're on the subject of some of the other stuff he's done, did you see his Apple TV series? You see Dr. Brain?
I haven't. I was interested in it, but
man.
Is it?
So good. It's amazingly good. It took me a couple of times. The first time I tried to watch it, I think I wasn't paying enough attention. I was probably drifting on my phone a little bit, and I wasn't really following. So I didn't quite track the first episode, and so I drifted off. And I came back to it like maybe 6 months or something later, and locked in. Like I didn't have my phone near me, and really dialed into it. Yeah, and it gripped me. So by about the second episode, I was like, "This is fucking unreal good." And the main actor in it ended up committing suicide not that long ago. So it's going to spin off and have a second season, but it's he's so good. Yeah, Dr. Brain's phenomenal.
I need to watch it then.
Really, really good. Really good. Yeah, you'll love it. Kind of really interesting kind of detective story at its core, but with a very unlikely main guy. Like he's completely on the spectrum and kind of very awkward and super weird around people. And he's basically made this device that allows him to share memories with other people.
Yeah.
And every time he does, he gets a little bit of the elements of some of that person rubs off on him. So at the beginning, he's really cold and emotionless. And the more people that he connects with for trying to work out extra information, because quite often he's doing it to people after they've died. So if he catches them really quickly after they've died, you can basically get some of their memories and try and work out who's killed them or what's happened. But some of their personality will rub off on him a little bit and like starts giving him borderline superpowers. Like there's a couple of guys who've been really skilled fighters, and then he gets the ability and he fucks up and does it with a cat at one point, and then he gets some of the cat's skills. Basically,
that's a cool
so
plot.
Good.
It sounds awesome. Yeah,
it's really, really good fun. I really, really dig it. I would have been great to see how it expanded, but in some ways, it's not good that the guy killed himself, but because the main star is no longer around, it's just a one and done. So it's a really manageable amount of episodes. I think there's only 8 or 10 episodes. Each one's about an hour, and it's just beautifully shot, beautifully staged. Kim Ji-woon's not set a foot wrong for me. Literally every single one of his movies I've seen, I've adored.
Yeah, I haven't seen all of them. There's a big handful that I haven't seen, but I love what I have seen. He's a fantastic director, and he seems to always manage to get the best cast that just work perfectly for his films. And it's just, wonderful.
I'm sure what he's doing next, actually. Well,
did you see Cobweb?
Oh, yeah.
How's that?
Cobweb's pretty good. It's very, very different. It's a kind of, I'd put that in there's a kind of small group of movies that are almost movies that exist about making movies.
Okay.
And Cobweb's in that sort of vein where that does it in a really smart way. Like when it starts, you think you're watching as the film is just a scene that's being filmed for the film inside the film. And then you cut and you can break out of that, and then the rest of the film sort of takes place. And it's Song Kang-ho, who's really, it's a great part for him. He's always really watchable. Song Kang-ho's not in I Saw the Devil. Song Kang-ho was the kind of the father in Parasite, if you saw any of the cast.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a phenomenal actor, and is, again, another one who's worked with Kim Ji-woon a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
You seen The Foul King?
No.
It's about a guy, an office worker, who decides he wants to become a luchador, like masked wrestler, and kind of goes off
like
and
a Fight Club
training.
Offshoot or something.
Sounds like something my speed.
It's been pretty funny, and again, really beautifully well played. And that's the sort of two of them work together in that. And I think he is back in Age of Shadows as well, which is kind of like political intrigue set
Those
against
titles.
the Japanese invasion. And what's he up to just now? I need to check his current filmography and see what he's got 2 movies in the works, one called Drishyam and one called The Hole, both of which I know nothing about.
Yeah, I've never even heard of them. No.
A TV series called In the Net. So yeah, he's a busy dude, but yeah,
he's a busy
amazing,
dude.
absolutely amazing director.
Some of those titles sound like Assassin's Creed games, like Age of Shadows and
Age of Shadows is pretty great. And what else has he done? I think we've covered almost everything. The Quiet Family was his first one, and The Quiet Family does have Choi Min-sik in it from this.
Nice.
And also has Song Kang-ho. It was remade as The Happiness of the Kudakares by Takeshi Miki. He remade it and turned it into a musical. But the original Quiet Family is so good, like really, really low budget. And it's just about this family who own a guest house, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And there's talk of a new road being developed at some point, and they're hopeful that might bring some more people in to stay at their guest house, but most of the time their guest house is just totally empty. And then through a series of misfortunes and bad luck, every single person that comes to stay at the guest house over the course of the movie dies really unexpectedly, and they're left with like, how the fuck do we deal with this situation? So it basically becomes like a very dark black comedy of them trying to hide the bodies and not get caught, because it had nothing to do with most of the people who died, and just them trying to keep their shit together. And I think Choi Min-sik's like the uncle of the family. Song Kang-ho's the young son at that point. He's really early on in his career, so he's pretty young. But yeah, they're amazing, really good.
What's that new Daniel Craig I didn't see it like with knives in the title.
Knives Out.
Right, and that and Clue. I don't know what you're saying to remind me of Clue. Maybe that like that type of plot where they're all in a house or something.
The first one's really good. The second one, because they made a sequel for streaming called
Glass Onion,
which I didn't enjoy quite as much. But that first one with Ana de Armas, pretty good. Pretty good.
I like it. I thought the second one was fine, watchable, but yeah, the first one is a gem. It's a great film. He's working on the third one as well. Ryan Johnson is.
Shaun, before I forget, what about that scene with the buddy eating? You had some notes you said in the chat, or an observation about it. Was scene.
Just I can't like that scene to me. I'm not bothered by the cannibal. I'm not really bothered about him sat there eating the human meat, but I think the problem with that scene for me is when he goes into his refrigerator and he has a ton of victims. And to me, it's almost like it's John Wickian in that John Wick suggests us this whole world with the High Table and this league of assassins, and the world grows throughout the John Wick. And in this, I just feel like he expands the universe in that scene a little bit. It's just like, hey, there's all these fucked up weird killers that hang out together and eat people, and they've got 100 victims in their refrigerator.
No, that's interesting. You took it that. I took it this way: is like they've basically found a house, taken over the house, killed everyone inside the house, and so most of the people who were in the house before are who are in the freezer, and the person that's not, the one person that's left is the one that he goes to, who's got locked up in the cupboard.
Oh, fucking hell,
he's run out of, there was one thing specific that he's looking for, isn't it? Like looking for more intestines.
Yes.
Because they're easier to eat, presumably. Yes. So he basically goes to the one other person they've still got locked up in a cupboard. Because I did not take that as being their own house. Like it's basically a house they've taken over.
Oh, that's changed it for me.
That's a good point. Well, Dragon, you're probably also saying how could this guy like afford this house? I mean, because I can't see this guy going to work or running any. I mean, he didn't strike me as an entrepreneur.
That's a good point. All right, I never thought about it that way.
You know what? I was right there with Shaun. I thought this was a look into this whole world where, because what threw me about the guy was, if you watch true crime stuff, it's rare. When serial killers are very lone, and they might start like two guys together, and sometimes they're so bonkers that they just kill the other guy, because it's rare for like them to hang out and be like. So that's what like threw me about this. I think they were trying to get, this guy's clearly insane, but he's insane in a different way, where he can have enough rules to have dinner with this guy where they almost killed each other at the table.
By the way, I love that scene when he calls the cannibal crazy and the cannibal sheds one single tear. I love that. I think it's a very telling filmmaking. I think him kind of, the cannibal not wanting to hear that he's crazy and kind of like toiling with the idea of how fucking nuts he is. I don't know. I think, again, these little nuances in the film, I might not, I love that scene, but I can't help it. It feels like it's slightly veers on the silly, but having heard what you just said, I'm just like, oh my God, maybe I need to watch it completely differently. But yeah, I still love the scene and the little smaller kind of built-in scenes in that whole thing. But the initial feeling I get is, oh, this is a little daft.
And it was like in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre way, because the first one, when it gets to the family and the dinner, and it's kind of like that really works. But I have to rewatch. I didn't like the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre when I was younger. It just was leaning more with, it has Dennis Hopkins or who's in it?
Hopper.
Hopper. And it just leaned into family stuff a little too much. It's kind of like if like you ran with this dinner scene and made like a sequel and had like a family that did this. I don't like when it goes too far in that direction, but I got a lot of odes to, of course, Silence of the Lambs, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and not like overt. It's just everything has to, pull, as they say, like if we've seen further, it's from Standing on the Shoulder of Giants.
Yeah, it's more tonal, I think. In like it's closer to tone in tone than like two Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
right?
Rather than lifting actual moments, like you've said. I think you're absolutely right. I think there's it like is inherently got this like this strange family vibe to it, and that's definitely borrowed from or the idea concept is borrowed from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a film I hate, by the way.
Oh, really?
I hate Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And tell me why. Wow, that's really shocking.
I think it's garbage. I think it's a bad film. I think it's
Wow.
I think the ending when she's with the family is cringeworthy and awful, and it's interminable. It goes on for like 20 minutes with her screaming around the table. I fucking hate it, and I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Oh my.
The amount of people that have torn me to shreds on Twitter for not liking Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And this is
fucking hate it.
It's never like, did you watch it back in the day? It never hit with you?
Yep. It's never hit.
Wow. Because interesting. Because when I first saw that, of course, I love that slow burn. Everything took so long with the hitchhiking. I was just, it all got to me. And when Leatherface shows up, it really worked. I respect you not liking it.
I'm annoyed that it didn't work for me. It's frustrating that I didn't like the film. And I've watched it countless times. I almost bought, yesterday, I almost bought the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And that's your horror fan in you want to like it. I mean, why would you watch it dozens of times?
Because every time I go back to it, I'm like, I'll see something new. I'll like it this time around.
Yes.
And it's the same with The Exorcist. I hate The Exorcist as well.
Also not, while it's confession time, also not a fan of the first one or the second one or the third one. It's the third one that's got Matthew McConaughey in it. I desperately tried to force myself to like the first one more, because Ridley Scott would always speak about how much he'd been heavily inspired by it when he was making Alien. That always made me think like, fuck, I really love Alien. I should totally be into Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and just it never quite worked for me. Like I always found it. I kind of, in some ways, I preferred, even though it's more pantomimey and a bit more ridiculous, I kind of always preferred The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh yeah, I've never seen the original.
That same sort of vibe.
Yeah, I never saw the original. I saw the remake.
Because there's a few kind of Appalachian mountain men derivative sort of movies, right? There's a more recent one with Eliza Dushku.
Wrong Turn.
Yes, right. That was almost like I got more from that. And I weirdly didn't mind the remake of. There's a remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, isn't there?
Yes, and some of them are genuinely very good.
With Jessica Biel?
Jessica Biel, and then there's
I was about to ask you guys, like, how'd you feel about the remake?
I kind of preferred, again, this is probably total blasphemy, but kind of preferred that over the original one.
I stand by that.
It felt better made. It felt less sort of exploitation cinema, which I'll forgive a lot when it's a kung fu exploitation movie. I'm maybe a bit more picky when it comes to kind of horror exploitation cinema, because too often it can just descend into like a girl in distress for no reason but having a girl in distress. And Peter Jackson was so incredibly good at making super low budget crazy horror movies that I saw way earlier. So kind of anything that wasn't Bad Taste or Brain Dead was like,
I'm shocked. I guess what it is for me is that when I saw it, I mean, so long ago, I guess because it's a pillar when you have Night of the Living Dead, and you know how you have to make those adjustments though, because like if you showed like a 15-year-old kid now Night of the Living Dead, I don't know how it would hit them, you know, and it's like I had to make those adjustments. I feel, and it's kind of like you can watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and then if you show someone One-Armed Swordsman afterwards, it jumps back a few too many decades that, you know, and I guess that's what you're saying, you're a little more forgiving in the Kung Fu department. In this, what it was for me is when you would watch VHS tapes or look at the boxes when you're at rental, you know how you would just eye them and you're like someday maybe. And in the 80s, everything looked like I'd see Jacob's Ladder, and then you finally watch it, so creepy, you know? Yeah. And then there was one called Mother's Day.
The remake or the original?
The original. It had that, and it had that like skeleton in a box. When I finally watched it, it kind of hit that mark of, there was something scary to me when you would watch those old, and it looked bad, you know, because sometimes when you would like watch Jacob's Ladder, like all cleaned up, it loses that whatever. When I finally saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'd seen the box. I was like, okay, we're watching it. The exploitation in the grindhouse and the crappiness of it kind of fed into it. It felt, you know, and I'll tell you, speaking of grindhouse, it's one of the ones when I went to Tarantino's theater, they did on Halloween time, they did this with a full pack crowd. And when Leatherface came out, I felt like in 1974, because they do often, I guess, call that the first slasher movie in the essence of the kickoff for that period. You know, it's like one of the pillars. But it doesn't have like the standard Friday the 13th style of one guy. Like
before or after Halloween? It's before
I
Halloween.
think it's 4 years
before Halloween. I think
Yeah.
I don't count Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a slasher. I think it's its own unique thing. But
But I think
it's the roots of slasher.
Right. It's like, I think it's 74, so it's like 4 years before. And of course, I'm not trying to sway you guys. I'm just saying I am on the side of, wow, I'm shocked by that. But but I respect
I have
that.
terrible taste.
Well, I think the buildup is kind of B-movie-ish, but the payoff when Leatherface shows up, I just think it like all works. But I feel like I'm trying
when
to
Leatherface
sway
shows up, that's the best bit of the film. I like that when they're in the house and the door opens and he drags them in, and I like that. But for some odd reason, it just doesn't work for me. But I have a few films like that kind of scattered throughout my kind of.
Only chainsaw I want to see is in Tiger on the Beat.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I like talking about those pillars though and stuff. And that's why we're getting perspective on this, I tried to like go into Reddit and see what other people were saying about this, because when I don't have a commentary to listen to, I went in blind. I actually thought I saw 2017 or 2018 when I was watching this. So when I saw his phone, I was like, man, is Korea like really behind the times? Like his phone looked like so bad. So then I just peeked real quick. 2010. No wonder it looks like, his phone just looked like 1 mega or less, like 0.3 megapixels. And so like, as watching it, how does this stand? Not just this director, how is this well regarded? And is it lesser known? Is it like people go crazy over it?
That's why I think it's interesting that you mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre as being a pillar film. I think I Saw the Devil is a pillar of Korean cinema. I think it's one that people bring up a lot, people talk about a lot. I think it's an important film. I think it captures the dark Korean aesthetic that, I talk about.
I love when you say that, by the way.
Yeah,
I honestly, that went in my ear when I was watching it. I could hear your voice in the intro saying dark Korean thriller. As I was watching, I was like, I get it. Oh, this is freaking
I love
out.
him. I truly love him. And I think this is definitely a pillar of Korean cinema, or definitely Korean thrillers or horrors, depending on how you look at it.
That's what I'm asking. What would it take to be called a dark Korean horror, though? I guess that's the thing with this movie.
I think it's entirely subjective.
And the lines blur too much. I think almost everything that the writer, Park Hoon-jung, has done since is, no matter whether it's writing or whether it's directing, the notes that promote the movie will always say the writer of I Saw the Devil.
Yeah.
Always. It's literally, almost the credit he can't get away from. And like, I think he's tried to just be kind of exploring other territory as his kind of career's gone on, because he's got much more lighthearted. But he did, he switched really quickly away from this type of movie. Like, he never really did another film quite like this in terms of what he was writing. He went much more into political intrigue, and there's an amazing film called New World, which has got such an amazing cast, which is kind of like a very different flavor of South Korean cinema, but so good and so beautifully acted, and has Choi Min-sik in it as well. The villain,
still quite a dark film. That one,
not in the same sort of gore or like serial killer type way. It's much more like corruption on lots and lots of different levels, like political corruption, police corruption, mixing with gangsters, mixing with just an incredible film.
It feels more like a Johnny To film. Flat out like thriller, horror, ultra violent film. I mean, there's violence in it, but it's nowhere near this level.
Please tell me, villain guy, does he have any like rom-coms or anything? Like, I can't picture when I saw him smile. I'm asking this because when I saw him smiling in the behind the scenes, before I saw that, he was so under my skin. I was like, I couldn't even hang out with this guy as the actor. I wouldn't want to meet him like a fest or something. This guy is he embodied that. And I wanted to like expound on that earlier, but like when it comes to those like unswayable villains that have no redeeming qualities, it's like, I guess American movies try to interject a little bit of it. I mean, even with like the Darth Vader scene, I know I'm going to Darth Vader, but sometimes that's based on like the devil, and like Jesus and the fallen angel story, of course. And so when you're trying to take, a lot of American movies try to give that nuance. And I saw this director like deleted some of the nuance, because there's a scene where he's looking through the girl's purse and he's kind of just that was a little, I don't know, he had like a space heater at his feet up, and I was like, do you want to see this guy like that shelled out? Like, I'm ready for him to put on like Netflix or something.
I'm glad they trimmed the deleted scenes. I don't think any of them worked.
No, even like the little bit of the girl getting caught in the snow, I guess it just like, you don't need that, You
don't need it. And the sex scene, I hated.
in the kitchen.
hated. Oh yeah, entirely unnecessary. I'm glad they didn't include
I
that.
think that might have been one. I might have had it honestly with that. It would have been one too many. I think the director kind of hit that thing where we get it. This guy's like,
right. And it takes it too far a little bit.
Yes. Well, it's kind of like when I watched. We spoke of it, Halloween. I bought the unrated version of Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Oh yeah,
and that has this crazy. I can't remember if it's a rape scene, but it's two like prisoners like in this having sex, and Rob Zombie, he has some of these, like he likes to overdo it, and I think when they pull him back a little bit, he's better, because I enjoyed that Halloween 2007, because that's the first time I guess they tried to interject some humanity into Michael Myers, and some of the purists were like, oh no, he has to be like
the shape.
He's the shape. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and speaking of Michael Myers, you know how at the end of the first one he gets shot 6 times and falls out the window?
Mm-hmm.
In horror movies, sometimes the enemy of horror movies are guns, and modern day cell phones, because they can really ruin these horror movies, and they have to make a way that the guy can survive getting shot. So they make him like supernatural a bit with Michael Myers, I think. And in this, what's great, I guess it's the laws. It's nowhere near North Korea, but if you see, the only time there can be a gun is when they're getting this hunting gun. And of course, there's all this taxidermy and everything going on in that room. Yeah. So it's like, wow, yeah, I noticed. And the guy was horrible with the gun too. He was so bad. Oh my God. I mean, that guy couldn't.
Which is good, because he doesn't use one. Yeah.
I mean, that guy couldn't hit the side of a barn. I mean, like the guy's right there, and then you see the light, like, but that gave, in horror movies nowadays, they have to go somewhere with no cell phone or no signal, It was nice that they covered the gun issue in this, because I noticed, man, there's so many shivs, knives. And I also saw
you get that a lot in Korean cinema as well. A lot of knife heavy action.
What about this like Three Stooges thing? I saw people mention this, where you can get hit in the head, blood spurting out, and then you're in the hospital. It's like a video game. You're like Grand Theft Auto. Like, here we go. You're awake.
Beating Choi Min-sik with a lead pipe and the blood splitting, I'm like, that guy's dead.
I know.
He's straight dead. He's not coming
a little
back.
Dummy-ish. I thought that scene, it looked a little bit. I saw the switch to a dummy. It just was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But do you think there's something a little strange how much head blows these people can take and be alive?
I think this film, there's a question of whether this film goes into excess sometimes. And in my opinion, I don't think it does, but that's only because I believe that the violence contributes to the overarching themes of the film. But sometimes you get, like, for example, when I was watching him getting beaten over the head, I kind of giggled a little bit, because I was just like, this is crazy. And I think there are moments like that when it's just like, yeah, okay, this is even the Achilles tendon. I think it's terrible and awful, and you're like, oh God, no. But there's a part of me that's just like, wow, this is so outrageous. And
even the
so
gorehound can cringe.
Yeah, I think there's something there where I don't know. I think excess kind of works in this film because it contributes to the whole evil thing. And I don't know. It could be because I'm also, a diehard horror fan, so maybe I'm kind of my opinions are a little skewed. But
there's a real purpose on the Achilles tendon one. I always thought it's similar to like the scene in Misery, where it was a very purposeful choice, because he's literally trying to slow him down.
Yes.
So he's knowing that he's going to be continuing to go and chase after him, and so he's literally hobbled him so that he's kind of incapable of running away from him.
Yeah.
So that he can kind of track him down. And also, it's a little bit sadistic. But I don't think it's purely just been done to. Because it was going to be that you would have just taken his eyes out or something. It's like,
exactly.
I think it was done with kind of how much pain can I induce in this guy and slow him down without kind of completely fucking up to the point where the game's over or the chase is over.
Exactly. Yeah. And Choi Min-sik's reaction in that scene is he's almost like a petulant child. He's almost like, wow, like banging his hands because it's so severe. Like, he's never experienced pain like that. And it's a really good reaction. It's very good acting.
That's weird. That's in Bloodhounds too, right? There's a bit when the sushi chef takes out the guy who's kidnapped the mum. And that's the same thing. He just goes straight for his Achilles tendons.
Yeah.
And it's something that there's a brutality to a lot of South Korean stuff that you don't really see. I think for me, to summarize it as a whole, not just I Saw the Devil, but South Korean kind of cinema and TV to a certain extent as well. They're at the bleeding edge of movie making, entertainment making for me just now. I always had this theory that only one country can hold a torch at any one time for like making the absolute best of the best, I don't want to call it necessarily entertainment, but the best moving image productions at any one time. And for a long time, it was America, right? And for an even longer time, it was Japan. Hong Kong had it for a while. And for me, at the moment, South Korea has been leading the charge for about the last 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And don't see anybody really kind of coming close to stealing that crown from them anytime soon, because they just keep outdoing themselves.
Even their like fluff films seemed fun. That film with Don Lee in it currently, the Demon Hunters film. Have you seen a trailer for that?
Yeah.
It's so silly, but my God, I'll be damned if I won't buy it when it comes out.
I'll never get tired.
K-pops?
Never get
Is it the
tired of seeing
K-pop
Don
one?
Lee.
It's not the K-pop one, but
different one.
watching Don Lee punch demons in the chest.
His fists are about the size of my head.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
That's what
He
you
has
need as a
mitts on
palate
him.
cleanser, Jason. You need the Roundup. So,
Okay.
as a nice palate cleanser.
Well, I got to say thank you guys, because this really, it opened my eyes. It really, because you guys didn't give me anything. Didn't give me any like
Intentionally
hints.
so.
Yeah. Right.
It's
Said,
hard. To,
well, Shaun, Shaun said you'll be on a watch list for mine. That was a little clue of like, oh, wow. You know what it is? In this day and age, like, it's so good, something get your blood moving and stuff. I mean, the worst thing is if I was just apathetic and kind of glazed over watching it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you guys aren't like the Raid really gets it going, and this hits on so many different levels. It's such a hybrid. You wouldn't call it a martial arts movie, but you would. I mean, his hints of it, has some martial arts in it, but I would say
it has some action in it rather than some martial arts.
Right. But it's not so much just like. It's not like I was going to say the Expendables, but that has plenty of martial arts too in it, so that's not a good example. Yeah, it's like an action thriller hybrid, and I guess it's that like juxtaposition of drama into these scenes. That's what I guess I'm learning is kind of the Korean way. In a way, I'm sure there's other movies that kind of blend it better, but it seems like it really. I mean, I had some whiplash on that. I was like, whoa.
I think you've reached. With this film, I think you've reached kind of the outer limits of South Korean violence. I don't think it goes very much beyond this until you start going into the overwhelmingly silly violence of like Project Wolf Hunting or something like that. Okay. I mean, that violence is raw, it's brutal, but it's the amount of blood that comes from people in Project Wolf Hunting is just insane. It's rivers of it. And I think once you go there, you will. I think the difference between watching I Saw the Devil and watching Project Wolf Hunting, the violence is far more enjoyable. It's far more it's very graphic, but it's very like silly and kind of just fun violence. Whereas this, I don't think it gets kind of grimmer and grittier than this. I Saw the Devil. I mean, unless you're watching something like The Sadness, but that's, I'm speaking about Korean cinema in particular. Yeah, I don't think I've seen a Korean film that is rougher to watch than this one.
And I think it's like what I was kind of describing as like a Grease analogy, that there's this movie coats you in a way that not that many films will, where it leaves you a bit grimy and a bit ick because of the nature of what it's about. Yeah, kind of. And partly by the fact that it makes you so complicit in it. Like you're seeing through the killer's point of view so often. And it constantly switches back and forth with who it is we're following their perspective of. And I think there's like a couple of films that have consciously gone out their way to really try and do this and done it really effectively. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is one that I always think of, where it's going out of your way to basically make you right there with him, whether you'll see through his eyes. There's a point where you're kind of watching what you think is live footage, but then when the camera pulls back, you realize they're watching footage that they've recorded from one of the killings, and they're watching it on TV, and you're basically right there with them. So you've basically, it's as if you'd almost committed the act alongside them, and all of a sudden you've become like an unwilling. You're guilty enough that you'd be charged with. When someone kills someone, you're that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. You're becoming an accessory to the murder, and I think I saw
that's what I was feeling. Yeah, now I know what you mean by complicit. Maybe that's also part of. Yeah, that's.
And because so it kind of should make you uneasy. Like it shouldn't be something that the end you're just like, hey, great.
It's psychologically affecting, but surely bad cinema is cinema that doesn't elicit any kind of reaction, right? Yeah. That you leave the film and you're just like, okay, that was a film.
That's the worst.
Yeah. Exactly. With this, you might not love it, you might be shocked by it, you might be flat out offended by it, but at least it's getting something from you. At least it's getting some passion in a way, or some kind of large reaction. And I think I Saw the Devil does that so well, because I personally don't think I Saw the Devil veers into sheer exploitation. I don't think it hits out. Like, if you watch something like Lucio Fulci's like New York Ripper or something like that, these just shockingly exploitational 70s Italian horror films that are just so over the top, I don't think you get that with I Saw the Devil. I think it walks not necessarily even a thin line. I think it walks a pretty decent path between exploitation and kind of sensible, acceptable gore, even though it is very extreme.
Yeah. The only other one that I think maybe pushes it ever so slightly further, because it dials down the slightly more fantastical elements of this, is The Chaser. And The Chaser kind of goes into like similar territory, but in a much more hopeless way. You know, it's like that's a movie that in some way for me can sometimes be a tougher sit, because it's a slightly less charismatic.
It's more real as well, The Chaser.
Yeah.
More real than, because this was ground level real for me. I mean,
is The Chaser based on a true story?
Don't think so.
No?
Well, maybe, but I don't think so. The Chaser, without giving huge spoilers for it, but The Chaser basically follows this basically disgraced cop who's now become a pimp and has a bunch of girls working for him. And there's a serial killer that's abducting girls from the street and doing very similar stuff to what we see in I Saw the Devil. And one of the cop now pimps girls has been abducted, and so he tries to find out what's happened to her, tries to get the police to do something about it. They don't, so he ends up having to basically dust off his detective skills and try and be the guy that finds her. And it's a sort of very warped take on a normal like detective chasing serial killer type movie, which in a way I Saw the Devil is too, but he's a much less likable. And Lee Byung-hun in I Saw the Devil goes to some pretty unlikable places, but he's a very charismatic, very watchable guy. The sort of the hero in The Chaser is not. He's even more flawed and fucked up and really quite difficult to like. And he's an incredible actor, but he's always very surly. It would be almost like if you were watching a movie where the villain from I Saw the Devil was your main hero, like somebody who's that flawed and that fucked up and that kind of like not that necessarily likable, which I think he managed to write that balance in Old Boy. Like, I think you do root for Old Boy, even though he's a kind of a piece of shit.
100% you do, yeah. I think oh, by the way, everyone, if you're looking for The Chaser and that you like the sound of it, Umbrella in Australia put out one hell of a release for that film.
Yeah. The
special edition or limited edition is pretty hard to get these days, I think. But the actual standard version is still available, I think. Yeah, unfortunately, I was left with the standard, even though I really wanted the limited.
Dude.
Yeah. But I did get the limited Bittersweet Life, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Wait, you got the second sight? Or did you get the Umbrella one?
Of I Saw the Devil? No, sorry. A Bittersweet Life?
Yeah.
I think I got the Umbrella one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I didn't. I got Second Sight. Maybe I got both.
Second Sight's the 4K. And I think the Umbrella one's just
definitely have the Second Sight one, because Second Sight, I'll buy anything that they put out, apart from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I got to get that.
Yeah, which I must say, there is a copy of their special edition of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's a dinged copy, and I think it's on Diabolic DVD. And it's looking nice because it's cheap, but I also know it's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I'll hate it. But my compulsion might overwhelm me, and I might end up buying it. Who knows?
Just if we could finally like watch 15 when you're over.
Exactly. I might like it this time around.
As we wrap it up, I had two questions for you guys. One. One, why do you think it's called I Saw the Devil?
Because everyone sees the devil in some way, shape, or form, whether it's his victims or whether it's Lee Byung-hun looking in the mirror and seeing the devil for the first time. It's never shown that he looks in the mirror and sees it, but I think he sees the devil in him. And then, believe it or not, I think Choi Min-sik sees the devil in Lee Byung-hun because he keeps following him, and he's just like, oh my God, what are you doing? This is crazy. So I think it's all about the your perspective, and everyone gets to see the evil in this film. No one gets away scot-free and sees all the good in the world. It's all evil all the time in this film. And it's grim. It's just a grim film where just the devil is kind of the complete villain of this film. And devil can be taken multiple ways, to mean monster, whatever it may be. But I think it's just a case of everyone sees the devil in this film.
Man, Shaun nailed that.
He really did. Yeah. The only thing I would add is that we all have the capacity to be either angel or demon.
Exactly.
So I think it's the idea that what would normally just be described as pure evil in some type of films or in some real life situations. How many times have you seen reportage or news coverage of something when something fucks up happens, and the press coverage will be also like this? He is pure evil.
Yeah.
And I think we do a dangerous thing when we start to put those sort of situations on people and then somehow make those people like a different class of human because they've done that thing. We have to always remember that everybody is capable of doing wonderful things, but also truly horrible, fucked up things. That so much of it's just about situation, upbringing, environment, all rolled into one, and kind of how much your moral code, I guess, is still intact. And if it gets shattered by something like the tragic loss of somebody who you care about, then I think we could all potentially could fall down that dark rabbit hole into becoming the devil ourselves. So but Shaun, you said it far more eloquently than me.
That was nice. That was well said. My other question is, me getting into Korean cinema, how rare is this type of thing with the protagonist changing and morphing? Is this very specific to, maybe there's an American movie I'm not thinking of, but it was this catch and release of the hero, you slowly unfolding and becoming.
It's pretty unique. It's pretty unique to this movie. I can't think of any other movie where I've seen such a kind of antagonistic, because there's his instinct in the film. The very first time he catches him in the greenhouse, he's gonna kill him. He's basically he's lifted the rock above his head and he's gonna smash his skull completely, game over. But then he stops himself, almost as if it's like, now this is too easy. It can't be over this quick. And then it kind of extends. But then he'd already got the bug and he hadn't made him swallow the tracking device at that point. So how much of it was he thinking ahead of I'm gonna catch this guy and keep releasing him again and again and again? So my cat's going crazy. So I think I'm getting too lost in the woods again. There's not that many examples of this sort of situation happening.
No, not at all. I think, the closest one I would say that kind of springs to mind is, funny enough, a film that we spoke about earlier, which is Silence of the Lambs. I think Clarice Starling, by the end of the trilogy, she loves Hannibal Lecter. There's a romantic thing happening there, I think, to an extent. By the end of Hannibal, I mean. There's some romantic scenes between Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling in Hannibal, and I think that's one of the films I can think of where a character kind of shapes herself into something else by the end of the trilogy. But something as kind of extreme as this, where a quote-unquote hero possibly becomes the quote-unquote villain, you don't see that a lot, which makes this film special, I think, because you don't see that a lot. And
thanks for that, because I didn't know if you guys were going to say, "Oh, this is one of 30 that this,"
No,
I didn't know if it was like a trope of Korean cinema where they really do a swap almost, because you would never say the villain at the end was the good guy, but he really was in a victim, he's so hobbled and so beaten up, and it's not that you could sympathize because. And that's what it was. It was gory, and you were cringing, but you're also kind of happy because this guy's getting his due. So it's that mixed feeling.
It's confusing, absolutely. And funny enough, I think a character that is kind of widely recognized throughout pop culture, and you mentioned him earlier, Jason, is Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader, and this is a similar journey. Our hero, or our good guy, let's say he's a good guy at the beginning, becomes a bad guy. Now, bad is subjective, and the idea of bad is what we all make it. Some people think bad is different to other people's bad, and I think there's a question of how much you forgive the lead character in this film by the end. But yeah, I think it's almost he goes towards the Force and ends up with the dark side by the end.
I wonder what happened to our hero.
Vader's story is almost like Lucifer's tale, because Lucifer, I don't want to get too biblical, but he was the kind of the closest, nearest, dearest angel on the highest echelon, closest to God, right? And then had this spectacular fall.
That's great. I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
Morning Star becomes the devil. So I think that it's a very old story and quite a lot of different. I think there's different interpretations of that in different cultures, but everyone kind of has that fallen hero story at its core. So it's something that kind of speaks to us on quite the level of our DNA away, but it's rarely been executed as well as this. So no, we're not going to bust out another 20 kind of Korean movies that you'll be like, this is very familiar. This was pretty unique.
What do you think happened to our hero in this one if we don't have a sequel? Like,
I love that it's kind of ambiguous.
Cliffhanger,
what's going to become of him? Like, is he?
I think he's going to jail.
Right? I mean, it's almost like it's the same ending. I hate to say, because this is a kind of a recent film and it's kind of fresh in my mind, but it's a very similar ending to Havoc, where you wonder if Tom Hardy at the end is like, well, he's obviously going to jail, but for how long and how seriously is he in trouble? No spoilers there for Havoc. Other than
I guess that won't be an intervention.
Well, no, I mean, it's nothing. I haven't given away anything.
Cool.
It's just the hero gets in a bit of trouble. That's all. But there you go. Should we wrap things up, boys?
Sure.
All right, we've gone long again in this one. I was speaking to Jason earlier, and I was just like, "Well, we'll probably keep it fairly short on this episode." And we've almost gone 2 hours, which is pretty special. But I think this film has a lot to talk about, and I think there's avenues in this film that we didn't even explore. But that's the great thing about cinema, is that you can carry on chatting about it for many, many years to come. All right, fellas, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We hugely appreciate anyone and everyone that listens to the podcast. Thanks for coming along on this journey so far. You can find us all on our socials. Just look for our names. Jason's at Martial Arts Theatre 3000. The Fanatical Dragon is the Fanatical Dragon. And I am Food for Thought. Type that into Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you go, you'll find us. Oh, YouTube. Come to our YouTube channels. They're pretty damn cool, if I do say so myself. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate you, and we will catch you next time.
And next time we'll be back on more familiar territory. We'll be back to something kung fu-y.
Yes, exactly. There'll be a martial arts fest next time for your eardrums.
Yes.
Later, guys.
Later.
Bye-bye.